All right, there we go. All right, here we are.
Perfect.
I had to start streaming. All right. My bad. Facebook was right. Okay. Scheduled live to live. All right. We'll see when this pops up. Testing, testing. Technology, you know?
Yeah, it's supposed to make our lives easier, I heard. I don't know that it's succeeding all the time.
Oh, come on. Manual start. Okay, live. It says we're live. All right, here we are.
Perfect. Anybody hear us in the world there?
All right, it says we're live. Yes, we're being heard, we're being seen. All right, fantastic. Doesn't matter whether it tells me as the broadcaster we're live. Apparently, it went live without notifying me, so thank you, Facebook. Okay, well, without further ado then, I just wanted to tell a little story to start. And that story is when I signed my first model release to appear naked in a movie, I was really nervous. And I hope they wouldn't use the footage of me for this documentary that they were making on Tantra. And when I saw the film, I was mortified because there was full screen, full nude, and you could totally see everything, and I'd never done that before. And so I was pretty freaked out, and I went to my friends and I said, "You see the movie?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "What did you think?" And they said it was okay. I said, "Well, what about me?" And they're like, "What about you?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "What, you were in it?" And I'm like, "What do you mean I was in it? I was there. I was naked. I was dancing." So then I had to go back and I watched the movie and again, and then I noticed that yes, I was naked dancing in this movie, but on my left was Regina and on my right was Gabi, and both of them were as well. And so nobody actually saw me because they were looking at the beautiful women on my left and right. So I think that same type of thing may happen today. And that's awesome because I want everybody to pay lots of attention. Not that we're going to be naked, but that she's so beautiful.
I was like, this just stepped up a notch. All right.
But she's so beautiful, and from my word, one word that I was just going to sum up is captivating. Is my experience of Lily, and this is our first actual conversation, but I've been captivated from afar, as I'm sure many of you have been the entire time. So, and we're having another visitor here, so that's awesome as well.
Yep, this is Lilu.
This is Lilu. Hi, Lilu. Okay.
Lilu Dallas Meowty Pass.
Awesome. Okay, Lilu Dallas Meowty Pass.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I'm sure that by the end of our time together, you'll feel the same as I do about her, which is how she feels about Keanu Reeves. Ladies and gentlemen, Lily VonTrapp.
It's true. It's true. All right, there we go. Not where I was expecting this introduction to go, but yes. All right, fair enough.
Well, I want to show you I pay attention, you know, right. I'm excited. Reeves, ladies and gentlemen, awesome. Lily VonTrapp. So, yeah, I am very flexible about where this goes, but when I was in England, they have this saying. They say, what are you like? I don't know if you've heard them say that, but I have kind of that question. What is it like to be around you, to be in your presence? What is it like? Because I've listened to kind of where you're from and etc. And if people want to go listen to those other interviews, I think they're fantastic and they should. And I'd like us to go a little bit deeper than this time. So because I'm just selfish and want to know more. So yeah, what's the experience of Lily like if I was able to be in the same room with you?
You know, I don't know that I can actually answer that question. My experience of myself is entirely different from the experience that other people have when they're around me.
So yeah, keep going. So
I mean, it's just, and this is something that I've known. I know Liz talks a lot about blocks, and how you'll find yourself in a position where there's a moment of growth or an opportunity for growth, and you can't get to that growth until you've gotten past the thing keeping you from it. And one of the things that I experienced is that I will go through an event, a show, some sort of appointment I have with someone, and I get to the end of it, and in my world, I just experienced myself for that period of time. Um, and then I get feedback from people, and the feedback that I get is starkly different from my own experience, because it doesn't matter how you affect the world, you only affect yourself the way you affect yourself. It's like jellyfish. Jellyfish are immune to their own sting. I am immune to my own sting, so I can't feel it. I don't feel my own impact that other people have given me the feedback that they've experienced from being around me.
Right. I remember reading sideways stories from Wayside School as a kid. And in that story, everybody has a flavor of ice cream that's named after them. And when they taste their own ice cream, they don't taste anything. But everybody else either likes or doesn't like their ice cream. So that's kind of what I hear you saying.
Yeah, that's a perfect parallel. Yeah.
Okay. So what do people tell you then? What are the comments that they get? What are the effects that you feel yourself or they say you have?
Um, So when I'm performing, but when I'm performing silently, and that would be more along the lines of the burlesque that I do, where I'm
Mhm.
not saying anything. It's just me on stage performing. The feedback that I get tends to range from "Wow, that was incredibly sexy" to um, "That was one of the most powerful things that I've seen in a long time." On occasion I get the people who are super excited, and they come to me after experiencing something, and art affects people in a way that we don't have real the English language doesn't offer you a palette of words to choose from to communicate properly, and so you tend to grab what's closest to you. So I'll have people come up to me after watching an entire show and say, "Oh my god, you were my favorite." And I know that it translates sideways to something about what you did impacted me more than what the other people were doing in this moment, in this space, at this time. So it ranges, and sometimes it's like, "Oh no, that was interesting. I thought that your take was your take on how to get out of a straitjacket was a provocative experience and a metaphor for it." I'm like, "Yeah, oh, great, that's awesome. Also, I was just stripping out of a straitjacket, so I feel like maybe we're overanalyzing this a little bit, but sure, all right, fine." Um, so when I'm on stage and I'm not speaking, that tends to be the range of feedback that I get. Sometimes, um, when I'm in a space and I'm moving through it with more vocabulary, the feedback that I get from those experiences, it uses words like powerful and captivating and um, uh, regal. And then a lot of times with my photo shoots, when I'm working with someone I haven't worked with before, when Liz and I work together, she knows me very well. And so her feedback is a little bit more nuanced. But, when I work, I have a few photographers that I work with. And every time they reach out to me, it's because they have some sort of stately presence they need to captivate. And so it's queens, it's dominatrixes, it's, women who stand and just exist in a place of power. And so, my personal self-image of myself is awkward 14-year-old Lily who wore giant oversized t-shirts that were hand-me-downs and jean cut-off shorts and would go climb trees and get scraped up and bruised and, sit at the top of a tree in East Texas and fantasize about whatever random shit was on my mind that day. And that's where I live. That's who I am in my own head. And so when I have people come to me and say things like, "The presence that you exuded tonight doing this thing that you did fundamentally altered me in a way that I need to think about, and I would really like the opportunity to come back and talk to you about later," just kind of blows my mind a little bit sometimes, because in my mind I'm still awkward 14-year-old Lily climbing trees staring off at clouds. So it depends on where I am and what I'm doing, but the feedback is presence mostly.
It's interesting that you say regal because I was looking through your collection of photos for the photo to use kind of in the last hour just to promote us one more time. And there was kind of Marie Antoinette-ish gold sitting on this beautiful couch. And that was definitely this regal thing that came through in that photo. And you absolutely see it there.
Well, and what's interesting is that that day, excuse me, that was like a 7-hour day of photo shoots, which if you've ever done photo shoots, it's a long time to be in front of a camera. But we captured a range from that outfit with the Marie Antoinette feel, the kind of Renaissance opulence, that sensual experience. And we went from that to, at one point I was in a rope tie, and generally that's a very submissive position to find yourself in, is you're bound, you can't do anything. And the message that comes through from that was still, that person is dangerous. She's bound not in a submissive position, but she's bound for your safety so that you can exist more safely in this environment. And then we had one that I did with one of my favorite humans, Angel, and we were wearing recycled rubber pieces that had been turned into these elaborate kind of post-apocalyptic fashion things. And still, the two of us, it still had this very powerful kind of sense. So whether I was wearing costume pieces or rope or recycled bike tires, I still had that moment of not pride, but and not pride or arrogance would be how you would read it if you weren't reading it entirely correctly, but just presence and the regal sense of power and confidence.
So was that something you cultivated? Was that something that came to you between that 14-year-old girl and now? Like, what happened? How did it get there?
So much happened. I'm not a large person, and I have never been a large person. I think I'm actually, if you measure me up against a wall, I'm about 5'4". And if you get me, if you pull me out of a pool, I'm completely soaking wet from head to toe. I'm about 111 pounds. So I'm not a traditionally imposing person. But I am opinionated, and I am not subtle. And the consequence of that is I have found myself through my life in positions where I have kind of come to out of the moment that I was in and realized that I was a very small person in a very large crowd. And what I have learned is that when you act confidently, when you move through an experience like it's your own experience, like you are in control of the place, the time, the conversation, people just will follow that. And it's become a safety measure for me more than anything, is I've put myself in these places where I could easily be in danger. One tiny shift of energy, one tiny exposure of vulnerability or fear, and all of a sudden everything goes sideways. So I've cultivated, I've learned to be the confident person, because once you take that first step, someone else will follow you. And if it's someone that you need to be following you instead of blocking your way, I don't know, a 6-foot dude who weighs twice what I weigh and has an eye for, I'm wearing a corset and a pair of booty shorts. Like, maybe that's something that he's really excited about. One attitude shift, and he's going to be right in front of me, blocking my way, doing what he wants. I come into that situation confidently with a little sense of possession of the moment, and he's behind me instead. And that's something that I have worked really hard to make sure that I can move through spaces as a female human who's very small and not naturally intimidating. I need to figure out a way to be intimidating so that my safety is at the top of the moment, instead of being recovered out of, waking up face down in a dumpster with my clothes ripped off.
Wow. That very graphic. You just kind of shocked me with that last little bit in there. But yeah, that's the reality. That's how a lot of people feel and see themselves, their power. A friend of mine says, she used to walk around and, she couldn't physically be there were a bunch of sexual abuse experiences, and she was always looking over her shoulder. She was always feeling, where's the danger coming from, what's going to happen to me.
Yeah.
And at 5'4", 110, it's not like you're going to be, I don't know, the physical, the solution, pepper spray or a gun or whatever. I mean, we're getting into power on different levels here, but the point is, I just, like you said once, I wish everybody could hear what you just said, because how did you make that decision, or how could you, in a nutshell, show people how to have that power regardless of physical size and what you think that means?
And it's difficult, and I lived through a lot. I'm a reasonably attractive female human who is outspoken about the passions that she has, whether it's social justice or stripping or whatever that means. And the way that humanity understands how to respond to that is by, if you are seeing something that is challenging, you have to be more challenging. And that's why people are so physical, and they fight and they come into that space. And one of the best ways that we as a human race have learned to culturally and physically get women who are loud to submit is by dominating them, because most men are physically stronger than most women. So when you have a female human who moves through the world and she's powerful and she's dominant, it scares a lot of people. And so they have to come at that from well, you might be more powerful in this moment, you might be more dominating in this situation, but I can show you that I'm actually more dominant by physically making you submit to me in whatever case that means. And as a young woman, I experienced that a lot. And so, hi, I'm another woman that's had some sort of sexual assault happen to her. Surprise, surprise. And the way that I've come out of it has been, okay, well, how do I make it so that this doesn't happen again? How do I find my own power and my own space and build that up so that when I'm in a situation where someone does get threatened, I can have the conversation with them to see, I see that you're experiencing something, let's unpack this. Or short of that, just being such a domineering experience to be around, that it doesn't occur to them to step into that moment that might be kind of gestating behind their lizard brain.
So what I'm hearing you say is that perpetrators are looking for victims.
I don't know that that's what.
But like, if you're not framing yourself as that, then
humans get scared.
Yeah.
And fear is something that a lot of people are taught to avoid at all possible costs. And we aren't taught that what are so-called negative emotions we're taught that they're to be avoided. We're not taught that they are to be stepped into and experienced. We have such a culture, especially in the West. It's youth, it's beauty, it's happiness, it's freedom, it's these moments, and we're given the landscape that's the thing to attain, that's the thing to live in. If you're not in that space, something is wrong. And anything aside from that is a negative thing. You don't want that. It's not good for you. Pain is bad. Discomfort is bad. Unhappiness is bad. And so when people just have that reinforced and reinforced and reinforced, they step into a moment and something makes them uncomfortable. Whether it's I'm in a space I'm not familiar with, whether it's here's a person that I want, this person will make me happy. I know I want them. They are going to make me happy. And that person says, no, I don't know you. You're not welcome in my space. And then they're like, okay, so something is in the way of me being happy. I need to get to that space. That's the only thing that I know that I'm supposed to pursue. And then it becomes them inserting themselves into the experience beyond what they're welcome to do. So I think that there are truly horrifying human people who live in a way that is backward and broken. And they are the people who seek out other humans to domineer and destroy and violate. But I think for the most part, and I'm talking like 90% of people, 95% of the humans alive, just don't understand what they're feeling what they're experiencing, how to experience it, and how other people are involved in that decision. And so, there are too many times where people say, this human over here did a thing to me and it broke me and my life is forever altered because of this choice that they made. But other people will pop up and be like, that's one of the best people I've ever met. I don't understand. You can't possibly have that experience because my experience was this very positive thing. Because we don't let people be different things. We have such black and white. And I feel like I'm getting into rambling territory, but I feel more like we as a human race have not accepted that there's a lot of potential for growth. And because of that, we have given people terrible handbooks on how to be humans.
Oh my goodness. I love this. This is this is becoming better than I could have possibly dreamt. So thank you. And what you said, okay, there's about 10 things I want to reply to, but I guess we can only do one at a time. And so you said something that I loved, and that was, when I crave a sense of adventure, I accept random friend requests and look at my open my DMs. So I'm guessing you're getting some of these experiences that you're talking about, where people are coming in ways, no pun intended, that are not really expected or desired. And of course, there's this huge thing, dick pics and whatever, and you're out there with your sexual energy very intensely. And most, well, not most, but a lot of women respond like, how do I respond to that? I'll shut down. I'll get rid of any photos on my Facebook page. I won't show anything to anyone. I'll just, okay, we can't do that in social media. And then I expect, you see people do that in real life too. They're doing the same thing. They're shutting down their energy, and they're not present for the world, and they're not able to be touched or connected to or anything. So here you are expressing all this, and then you're even open for it coming back. So lots of it's coming. I'm sure there's lots I would say you don't like, or you're not enjoying as much as some other things. So how do you manage all of that, or how do you do that dance? I mean, I can't imagine you going to long conversations with every single person who sends a dick pic, or like how do you manage that when you've got all this energy coming in?
It's I generally dislike people. As a rule, my fallback is I don't like people. I don't.
Okay.
But and so I have low expectations, but I have really high hope. So I will open myself up, and I have accepted, and for whatever reason, the way that I've found to cope with being a person who has a lot of being a female human who moves through the world with a lot of powerful sexual energy, I understand that means that there's going to be a lot of negative feedback. And that means that sometimes I open myself up and I'm like, cool, nope, here, I've got 700 friend requests. Fuck it. Yes, 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 yes. And then I'll go through, and immediately 5 or 6 of them just pop up, and it's like, hey, hi, dick. Oh, okay, subtle. Or here's a video of porn, or like video chats. I've accepted video chats from random strangers on occasion, and it's just them just going at it, just fucking doing it, and then I hear this and there's just this explosion of sperm, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating to me because that's what I expect. Those are the interactions I expect from people. And so when I have people that pop up and they're like, hi, I just want to tell you that I've been, I've been looking through your pictures and reading what you've said. And I just want to tell you, I really appreciate that you're willing to share these things with the world. You're a beautiful woman. Thank you. Thank you for accepting my friend request. Have a wonderful day. That just blows my mind. That makes my day when people come and they're not horrible humans. So yeah, seeing what I've seen, going through what I've gone through, I just accept the world is a terrible place. And sometimes you get these teeny tiny, beautiful, colorful beacons of light and flavor and peace and kindness in the world. And when you accept that that's not the norm, the terrible things become less terrible because you're not attached to the idea that all humans are trying to advance themselves. You're attached to the idea that everyone's on their own journey, And not everyone is nearly as far advanced as you would like them to be, because if they were, we would have Starfleet at this point. So I don't know. Part of the way that I can accept where I am in the world and the world that I live in is just understanding that it's really hard to be a person and not everyone succeeds.
It's like I come with you until your last sentence, and then you always blow me out of the water with the last sentence. So I'm like, okay, I know what I'm gonna say, I know how I'm gonna reply, so I don't look stupid and I can keep this conversation going. And then she says something, it's like mind blown, like, and then I don't know what to say after that. Oh, so I don't remember what it was last time, something like graphically sexual, but this time it's not, it's hard to be a human and not everyone succeeds. And I just want to like go meditate on that for 2 hours right now, and digest that. So I'm interpreting from what you said that, so when these things happen, when you get the dick pics, when you get that's kind of the normal thing. And I'm guessing that you filter, you block whatever after having given this person a chance. And for some reason, it doesn't stick to you in terms of your energy. Like you're not upset. You're not angry. You're not like, there's no emotional, like I feel hurt. I feel violated. What did they do to me? I want justice. I want restitution, like not at all.
To be fair, when someone does that, I still take the stance that I will go to your Facebook page. I'll go to your Instagram. If you're stupid enough to have your LinkedIn attached to your Facebook page and I can find you there, I will. And so I will take screenshots of people sending me this stuff and I post it on their social media. I tag them and everything. I go to their friends list and I find all of the women on their friends list and I send them screenshots. And I'm like, hey, by the way, I just want you to know who you're associating with. Here are screenshots of this conversation that this person had with me. I've never met this person. I don't understand why he thinks I would be interested in making bestiality porn with him. I just thought you might want to know that this is who you're associating with. So, yeah, that was a fun one. So I don't internalize it. People are who they are and they have their own experiences that don't actually have anything to do with me. And that's where, and aside from just the sexual energy, that's how I move through the world. People have their own experiences. You might see something and something about a picture of mine inspires something inside of you and it comes out and you need to deal with that and you come to me to deal with it. But what people don't really understand or follow through with is that next step of maybe something about my physical image inspired something for you. The thing it inspired is yours. That is your experience. That has nothing to do with me. I don't know you. We've never spoken. You see a picture of me and you get an erection and you think you're in love with me. That's not me. That has nothing to do with me. That's all on you. That's all your thing. And kind of coming into this space where I've really made peace with the fact that people are only responsible for their own experiences has made my ability to absorb things like random requests to make porn or, I can't even tell you how many people have come to me and solicited prostitution from me or, offered to fly me across country for prostitution and had all these experiences. It's not me. It's not my moments. Nothing about my experience in life has anything to do with that. I'm not responsible for those feelings. And it makes it a lot easier to kind of move through them and just brush them off is because it's random people who are doing their own thing, who it doesn't have anything to do with me.
I love what you're saying about that. And yeah, because I know people who work in various levels of the sex industry, whatever it is. And, there must be dealing with all of this energy coming in all the time on all these different levels. And they've found ways to deal with it that are not unlike what you said. And, and I've always wondered, how do you deal with all that energy? In fact, one person said she was an AVN and she had like like a couple years ago, she had to wear pads because otherwise she'd be all bruised on her ass from people like just, spanking her or pinching her without permission, without talking, without, any of that.
Right.
Um,
Oh, kitty.
but what I love that you said is you have a method for kind of exacting maybe justice or restitution or something in terms of, well, okay, let's go back to your LinkedIn page. Let's figure out who you are. Let's like tell everybody who's connected to you that this is the kind of man you are. These are the things you do. These are the, and you said it much nicer than I'm saying it. I'm being a little bit judgmental around that. But I love it because people feel so powerless and they think, okay, I have the criminal justice system, and what am I supposed to do? Sue somebody for sending me a dick pic,
Right.
or file something with the police, or they have this weird thing in China where if someone does something like some sort of harassment or whatever, they'll film that person and they'll spread that person all over social media until someone identifies them, and then they'll all kind of group harass the person who did the thing until
Right.
But here's what I like that we are in this community now, and you're not just saying this is a nobody, this is nothing, this is a person who did this, and they should carry some responsibility for what they chose to do.
Right.
And they did it, so they should stand for it. And I love that you're actually and actually what you're doing is holding a bit of connection with them, enough to communicate with their friends and coworkers and their partner and whoever, instead of just rejecting them instantly, which I mean is also part of it, protecting yourself. But
Absolutely.
I love how you're creating on a worldwide scale safe community and a safety for yourself, for other women through these actions. If every woman did what you're doing, yeah, like I think that would change things a lot.
Well, and that's just it. I've experienced a lot of abuse in my life in one form or another, and not a lot. I've experienced abuse in my life. And the thing that I always am startled by when I come out the other side of it is how when I speak to the abuse that I've experienced, so many people I thought were friends of mine, were people who loved me, who were on my team, so to speak, ignored what I said and sided with the abuser, or would minimize my experience. Well, if you only, I mean, if you really, I mean, and these are the conversations that I have. Well, I can't because no, no. I have very few personal tenets because I think that life is an experience that needs a lot of flexibility. My number one tenet is to be excellent to each other. That's the pinnacle moment. That's how I move through life. Be excellent to each other. Aside from that, do no harm, but take no shit. And that's where we're speaking from in this moment. And then just don't be a dick. Like those three things, I think if you try every action that you undertake, if you go through those three lines and ask yourself, I feel like I need to do this thing. Is it just because I need to be a dick, or is there a real reason for this? Like, no, I'm just being a dick. Okay, cool. You know what? I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to think about this, wade through it, unpack it, come out the other side, figure out what I need to do. But this is that moment of do no harm, but take no shit. And you can come at me. I am an incredibly strong person. I've been through a lot. I've carved myself out of my own stone, and I am who I am because of myself. And because of that, one of the things that's super important to me is protecting people who can't protect themselves. I was able to find the space inside of myself where I could chisel my own self into my own image and be my own God, so to speak. I am who I am, and I fucking love myself, and I am at peace with myself. And so when you come to me and you try to violate that peace and you try to shake it, I'm not going to let you. And if through that process of me speaking to abuse, to injustice, to missteps by humans, groups, cultures, whatever, if I lose people through that process, it's fine, because they were not people that I needed to have around in the first place. And I'm able to say that because I'm so comfortable being who I am. And so when I have someone who, is a narcissist who comes through my life and I don't catch it fast enough, I get to deal with the fact that I feel like an idiot afterward for not catching it faster. But I also pointed out to everyone, this person did these things. And if you can't accept that, we don't need to know each other, because you either believe victims, you ask them questions and you get to know their experience better, and then maybe you reevaluate your own, or you knee jerk and have your own experience and attach to that, because our own experience of the world is the only thing we have. And if we don't do enough analysis of it, then maybe it's not what it should be, but we're still in it and we're attached to it. And so whether it's someone sexually abusing me on a street in a foreign country, whether it's someone sending me a picture of their genitals, whether it's someone doing something to someone I've never even met, but I was there when it happened, I'm going to speak up. I am going to call it out, because so few people are willing to address something uncomfortable in an open space with other people. We don't like confrontation, and so we don't do it. I don't mind confrontation. If this tiny little 4-foot person, or I'm sorry, 5'4", 110 pounds, I see someone abusing someone else, it doesn't matter if both of them are 6.5 feet tall and have, 2.5 times my weight. I will physically put myself in between the two of them, because something is wrong and it doesn't need to happen.
So how did you develop that courage? Are you not afraid for your own physical safety anymore?
I would be completely lying if I said I wasn't afraid of my own physical safety. I tend to surround myself with very large humans. One of the people that I spend the most time with right now is more than twice my physical weight. He's 6.5 feet tall. He's almost a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and his job is bouncing for dangerous clubs in the area. So there's definitely a point where the people I choose to be around tend to be a lot more physically dangerous than myself. But aside from that, I've been the safe space for too many people who have been abused. I know that I've made friends with someone that we've really connected when they tell me about their abuse. And it's not, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's that I am a comfortable space for people. I don't know if it's that just literally everyone who's ever been alive has had some sort of abuse happen to them. I don't know. But I know I've connected with someone when they tell me about their history. And I can't hear about child abuse and child sexual abuse and sexual abuse and emotional abuse, and I can't hear about those things constantly and not do something. So my reaction, the way that I can be able to be that space for people, is that I have to make sure that I always defend those people when I'm out. So I see something, I see an abuser, I'm going to call it out, because I'm hearing every time I see two random strangers, maybe people I've never met in my life. I'm out at a bar, I'm at a friend's birthday party, I'm trying to have a good time, but I see something happening over here. And I hear all of the people who have come to me and told me their stories and trusted me with the most pain they've ever experienced in their life. And I hear this in my head, and I see something happening over there. And it doesn't matter how big I am, I can't hear the ghosts of these conversations and see the physical incarnation of something happening and not do something about it. I can't. It's not who I am. So I'll go over. I will physically insert myself between two people who are both twice my size, and I will prepare. There have been many times where I've had this moment where I'm standing between two people and I say to myself, tonight's the night I go to the hospital with a broken jaw. Tonight's the night I finally get my nose broken. Tonight's the night that I might wake up in the ICU. I'm doing this because that person is being threatened. Something is wrong in the world. And the only balance, the only way any of this is going to be solved is if somebody draws attention to it. And that's just who I am.
Oh, my whole body just relaxes listening to you say these things. I feel so safe in your presence. I love this. I think we need to. I want to go to something else because our time is just speeding by, and that makes me a little bit sad. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what I'm going to term real activism, and that is you. I listened to the interview, and I understand you're involved in the kink community, but even
Yes.
more, I understand you're involved in cleaning up the kink community.
Yes.
Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Well, it's kind of a larger it's a different version of exactly what I was just talking about.
Right.
You know, I see for whatever reason, the kink community draws people who are not your typical average generally, you know, it's not usually the people who had healthy childhoods and have healthy loving relationships everywhere around them and have been treated kindly by society. Those aren't usually the people who find themselves interested in any kind of kink. Sometimes, and that's fine too. You know, it's built from all kinds of people. More statistically, more often you have people who come in are not who have not found comfort or peace anywhere else in the world, and they come to the kink community and they have their own history and experience, and they move through the world in a different flavor, generally something leather or latex. And that's great, and that's what the kink community is there for. It's there to be a safe space for people. And what I have seen in the spaces that have been created or are currently existing in the Seattle environment is that there's been little self-analysis of people's reasons, people's interests, and people's behaviors. And I've seen things I absolutely abhor. I've seen practices I don't agree with and that put people in harm's way, in physical reasons, in emotional reasons. And so I walked into this space and I had someone who said, I want to do this thing. Will you come with me on this journey? And my expectation at the moment was, I will do this, but only under these circumstances. We are going to make this better. We are going to reshape this. We are going to create the community that we want to actually be a part of. And unless you are completely comfortable agreeing with me on all of those points, I am not going to move through this with you. And he kind of took a minute and he sat with that and he was like, well, what does this mean exactly? Well, how do you translate this? How do you interpret this thing? And it all came back to safety, consent, acceptance, education, and comfort. We're going to be the place that people come because they are scared and lonely, or you know, they've had this experience in the past and they know that we are going to provide something that doesn't trigger any of their past trauma. That's what we're going to do. That's who we're going to be. And if you're not comfortable with that, we're not doing it. And he was like, okay, let's do this. And so when we create events, we make sure to know as much about the people who are coming in as possible, the spaces that we occupy. We make sure that they're as safe as possible. And sometimes that means, you know, terrifying giant security people that are all on our team who are there to make sure people are safe. Sometimes it means breaking up a scene because I get information that someone who's a part of the scene has been either doing a lot of drugs or is drunk and there's consent issues. And so I will go in and physically break it up and say, look, I know that we had this scheduled and this was going to be amazing, but this chick just did 6 lines of cocaine in the bathroom and I'm not comfortable with her level of ability to consent to the situation. So we're not doing this. And if later we're going to talk about this, if you're going to be mad at me, that's fine. You can be mad at me. But I'm here to make this a safe space that's fucking amazing and fun and everyone enjoys their time. And that means having the hard conversations. I'll have the hard conversations. That's fine with me.
And what has the response been as you've gone in and started changing things?
I've been floored. Specifically, and people that I didn't even have conversations with. You know, we're still working on our self-identity as a company, moving through creating spaces in Seattle. So the level of overtness of our goals is not entirely as clear, which actually that's where I'm going after this interview, is I'm going to have a meeting with people to set expectations and put words to things. But out of the blue, I've had people I've never met that I didn't even get a chance to encounter or chat with come out and say things, public reviews that say things like, that was the safest fun I've ever had. I was entirely comfortable being there. I felt safe. I felt seen. I felt cared for. And that alone, just having random people who will pop up and without being prompted affirm the goals that I'm trying to achieve is what gets me through doing the work to get there.
And I'm curious if anyone ever, when you step into your power or when you're changing a situation, if you ever do get the pushback, you said, well, maybe I'll have a broken nose, maybe I'll wake up in the ICU, but has anyone ever like tried to do the brinksmanship with you and pushed it up, or do people say, okay, she's serious, I'm backing down?
I've I've had conversations where people have been, having the puffed out chest and like balling up their fists and kind of having this moment of aggression and planning. And I in that space, I accept what's going to happen. This was a thing. This was possibly going to happen. And I sit there and I make sure that they see them make this choice. And I watch them. And so far, the physical repercussions have calmed down at that point. So far. I've also interacted with people who are cowards and won't take the physical approach, won't be physically in the same space with me and have the conversation. And so they do the back alley avenues of trying to undermine me or speak poorly of me or try to bring me down in dumb political ways. And those have been more interesting because I don't deal well with cowards. I don't. If you're going to be a terrible person, be a goddamn terrible person. If you're going to be a good person, it's going to be terrible and you're going to have to deal with a lot of stuff, but do it. It's going to have more rewards. But if you do that weird thing where it's like, I'm going to be a terrible person and not pay attention to anything that I'm doing, and you're threatening my position as a terrible person in the world, I'm just going to go through the back alley ways of trying to make sure people think you're also a terrible person. That pisses me off more than anything. And so that's why I rely on my character. I do the best I can in every situation I can. I don't always succeed, but I do my best. And so when people try to attack me from weird ways that aren't, I think you're a piece of shit, I have problems with you, I hate you, I'm gonna punch you in the face, those are the ones where I become exasperated. And that's where I've experienced the most pushback is I don't like that you're threatening my position, but I'm not going to challenge you publicly. I'm just going to do this back stuff and try to get your people to come work for me or try to tell people that you're something. I don't even know because I also just don't pay attention to it. I make sure that the people I spend time with know that I appreciate them, that I love them, that I believe in them, and that I'm proud of them. And if I interact with people and that kind of building up an affirmation isn't enough for them and they're swayed by other things, that goes back to what I was talking about earlier. That's not my experience to be responsible for. I do the best I can with the people that I have around and the best I can with who I am as a person and move forward. And so far, I've had a lot of very positive response from it. And that's where I'm going to keep trying to grow myself, my community, my friends, the people I spend time with. And if other people want to circle around and try to undermine that, that has nothing to do with me.
Have you always been courageous?
Yes. I don't know if courageous has always been the right word or stubborn is more appropriate. But whatever it is, I've always had it. Yes. When I was a wee little Lily, my parents dropped me off at school on the first day of school and gave me two pieces of advice that I still live by to this day. One of them was don't believe everything the teachers tell you. which as a 6-year-old getting dropped off for first grade the first time, where I'm like, I'm supposed to be in this weird power dynamic and these adults are telling me what to do, having my adults say, don't believe everything they tell you. I was like, okay. Which explains the anarchist streak in me.
I love it.
But the other thing was bluff confidently. Act like you own the place and someone will give it to you. And so, but since I was a wee little person moving through the world, trying to figure out everything, those were two of the fundamental pieces of advice that I have stood on when I'm nervous or scared or in a place where I'm unsure. I take those two things out, I stand on them, and I've got one for each foot, and I just stand there and I connect to my power base, which is bluff confidently and don't believe everything everyone tells you. And that's always been my cornerstone, my grounding space to come back to. And it has so far served me very well.
Do you think there's a difference between deciding to be confident, pretending to be confident, and actually being confident?
No.
Same thing, right?
And they're all the same. I mean, I like to tell people that if they see someone and they have that experience of that person is so blank, I want to be like that person, rather than let jealousy set in, go talk to them, ask them. Because most people are not actually terrible at heart. And if you come to them humbly and kindly and you say, I have a question, or I really admired this, do you have any advice? People are pretty open to stepping into that space with you. If you create an open, kind, caring space for people, they're usually going to step into it if they can. And so I've had people that I've just admired the hell out of, and I've talked to them, and that's been the thing. That's one of the other kind of grounding spaces for me, is rather than let jealousy or insecurity grow, I step into the space where I admire someone and talk to them. How can you help me be what you are? And the feedback that I get is almost entirely, I had no idea what I was doing until I had an idea what I was doing. I just kind of figured it out along the way. And that's a super, hearing that set me free. Like, it set me free to have people that I admired expose their insecurities to me. And it also taught me that everyone is insecure. Every single person who's ever been born has some kind of insecurity somewhere. And that is the thing that connects all of us. And so when you're feeling insecure, it's not the time to feel isolated and terrified and nervous. Feeling insecure is the time to feel connected to literally everybody else around
you. So when is your speaking tour? Where can I buy your book?
Oh yeah, I got to get on that. Right. I knew I was forgetting to do something today.
Okay. I need to say something, and then we'll switch gears, I think, a little bit. And that is, I spend a lot of my time with people who are in the self-development industry in some way. And a lot of people are standing up and they're saying, I'm a coach, I'm a mentor, I'm a healer, I'm a guru, I'm whatever. But I like you better than 99% of them. And the thing that surprises, here's you are working intensely in running a lot of sexual energy, working in sexuality and bringing that to the forefront. And you're also super smart and kind of existing in the real world. So, and yet this is wisdom, this is power, this is courage, this is, I don't know. Do you have, what does your vision look like? If I can ask such a personal question, do you see yourself sharing more or participating more like that? Or what does it look like?
I've been, my whole goal is to be the best me I can be. And it's only been very, very recently that I've seen that the best I can be for myself is something that other people have questions about how to achieve for themselves. And so I'm just at the point where I'm finding humans coming to me and asking me, well, how did you get to this point? Well, what inspired you? Well, what are your thought processes? How, the questions of the roadmap of how do I get to where you are have only really just started coming to me. And so I'm still at the precipice of, I still have a lot of work to do. And also, I've done more work than other people, and they're interested in figuring out how to make that journey themselves. So I don't have an answer yet. Um, so when I did the last podcast with the Losing Our Religion podcast, at the end of each one, I gave out my personal email address. And it's lilyvontrapp@gmail.com, in case anybody cares. But from that, I've had people email me and reach out to me and say things like, I was really inspired. I have questions. I don't have anybody to talk about this space that I'm trying to occupy with. I really appreciate you being someone that I can listen to and enjoy, and I find inspiration from. And it just floored me. Like I keep a journal of compliments that people have given me, because the world is a terrible place, and sometimes we go into really dark spaces inside of ourselves, and it's difficult to find a navigation to get out of those. And one of the ways that I have found a navigation, of guiding light, has been collecting together genuine moments of connection that I've found with other people into one space. And when I can't figure out how to navigate for myself, I remind myself of those beacons, and it's like a constellation that I've built for myself to navigate out of the darkness. And so when this person emailed me, this one particular that I'm thinking of, when she emailed me and she said, I'm just happy to have been a part of this, and I'm taking a chance by reaching out to you. I took a little screenshot of it, and it's now in my little journal. And now she has become one of the stars in the constellation of how do I navigate out of my own darkness. So I'm finding this beautiful place of reciprocation where I'm moving forward, and I'm becoming a light to people who are also becoming a light to me. And it's becoming just so incredibly rewarding that, should I find myself moving forward farther into this and able to stay humble and stay connected to my own self, and also be able to help other humans, I would absolutely love to walk into that space and explore it more. But that's the thing, is I haven't done anything like that yet, because I don't want to possess the arrogance that I find so many people need in order to be that person.
That is something that I hear a lot. And I felt myself looking at some of my gurus. It was like, they taught me this amazing thing, and their own life is pretty fucked up or whatever. So I'm not quite sure, like,
Right.
Not quite sure. I don't want to end up like that. They're kind of cautionary tales sometimes.
Well, and that's the thing. And it's the you have to be able to extract. And I find that the two that really get me are that you have to be able to extrapolate the teacher from the lesson, just like you have to be able to extrapolate the artist from the art. Like there's a point where the person has to be discounted from their own experience somehow in order for you to make it bigger for yourself. And I don't want to be someone any more than I absolutely have to by proxy of being human. I don't want to be someone that people have to extrapolate the lesson from the teacher. I would much rather live the lesson and be the lesson, and happen to maybe find people along the way that I inspire, than grow into the teacher space and fill that out to the necessary boundaries so that the lessons are different from the teacher. And I just don't want that.
Powerful. I would like to talk a little bit, and I'm open and going to different ways, but I want to talk a little bit about children and child raising and society and children, if you'd like,
Sure.
Because I do have questions. And the first one is, I love your languaging. You say tiny human. And I was like, okay, tiny human, Peter Dinklage, or what are we talking about here? So, but so why do you call them tiny humans instead of children? That's my first question.
We're all humans. We're grown humans. We're tiny humans. We're weird humans, but we're all humans. You can add a qualifier to that, but the base is still the same. When you start referring to tiny humans as children, which is how people have done it for centuries and millennia. So I'm not knocking people. My own, the way that I get through this, because it's not, it is not easy. But the way I get through it is I remind myself that the person that I grew inside of myself, that I created a whole organ for, that I nurtured and created, and then squished out of me through a day and a half process, is a tiny human. He's not, we ascribe so many things to the concept of children. We think that kids are dumb. We think that kids are immature. We think that kids, we have this whole list of things that we ascribe to children. And it's not something I think a lot of people think about. If you think of children as just small adults, you're going to treat them like small adults. Because the concept is, for me, the concept for raising kids is definitely, I am the guidebook. My job, the job that I have taken on, is making sure that this small lump of cells, once at the very beginning, that this small lump of cells becomes someone I want to see in society, becomes someone I want to interact with in society. And if I think of this small lump of cells that I have chosen to keep, and so this small lump of cells is going to become a human, and there's a difference, just to be clear, I'm going to treat this person like an adult who just hasn't figured everything out yet. And my job is to teach him all the things that I can teach him, because I have a little boy. And it's a totally separate shift. I don't treat him like a kid. I treat him like an adult, because one day he's going to be an adult. And when he's at the space where he's mentally and emotionally mature enough to step into being an adult, which if you look at our society, most of us aren't.
Right.
We're never expected to be adults, because we're expected to be kids for so long. If you expect people to be, rather than separate it out to adults and children, you have adults, you have humans, and they're at different stages, and you work them through the different stages of their mental, emotional maturity, push them farther, get them, it starts with making sure they can walk, and making sure they can eat, and making sure they know their ABCs and can read and do these things. But if you keep going that ladder, you're just going to take this human and you're just going to advance them up the path. And then all of a sudden you have this beautiful, stunning creature that you've helped create, who's compassionate and kind and understands how people interact with one another, because you don't ever shelter them, because you don't ever put them in the box of children. Here's a box. This is where children live. And then at some point they're 18 and it's like, here's this box. You're out in the world. Good luck. Figure it out. That's not how I'm raising my child. I'm raising my child as a future adult. And it's just this very subtle kind of shift of understanding of how to interact with the person that you're interacting with. And that's how I've found the way to kind of move through that experience of motherhood.
That reminds me of two things that I read recently on the net. I said, one is, we expect 18-year-olds to make these gigantic decisions about their lives when a month earlier they had to ask to use the bathroom.
Right. Yeah.
And then another one was, we read kind of past annals, and people like Joan of Arc and whatever, they were commanding armies at 14, or kings or whatever at 6 or whatever, and that's how things were, like, right? And
right.
now we're yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that's exactly what it is. And this because I am who I am, once I decided to be someone who was responsible for a tiny human to become a large human, I started doing research, and I had done the mind is fascinating to me. I've done a lot of research in psychology. It's one of the things that gives me life. And on that journey and of educating myself, there was a lot of lifespan concepts and childhood psychology, and it's different. And so if you take these things into account, and you basically, what I did with my knowledge that I had, that I built on, is I pictured the person I wanted my offspring to be: a completely healthy, content, well-balanced human person who knew how to move through the difficulties of life, physically, emotionally, whatever. And I traced it back. Okay, well, if this person was able to do these things, how do we get to the point? Where do we start? Where is this line of beginning? Genius. And I kind of wove this web of, these are all of the characteristics I would like to inspire in my own child. And I brought them back into this place. And I'm like, okay, we start here. This is the starting space. And from here, we followed this path to get this, and we followed this path to get this, and we followed this path to get this. And all of it is starting from a place of treating your children like they're small humans. And that's why I use the verbiage, because language is very powerful. And it's I don't want to create someone that I build the way society tells me to build, and then at 17 and 3/4 he's still under curfew and still is not responsible for his own life. And then he's 18 and boom, legally he's now able to be responsible for himself, and he doesn't really understand how to buy toilet paper because I've always taken care of it for him. Like dumb stuff like that. From He knows more about the reproductive cycle because he'll ask questions and I just answer them than many adults that I've met. He understands my checking account at 4.5. He understands how I handle money because I talked to him about it. And he's only going to understand that more. He understands how I interact with other people. I have lots of friends that I have around. People show up at my house, and sometimes it's a really personal experience, and sometimes it's a very impersonal experience. I'll have models show up and do fittings or something. But I speak to the experience for him so that he knows what I'm going through, and he understands how I'm processing it, so that he has, even tiny tools. 4-year-old tools are very small, but eventually, if you know how to use a teeny tiny socket wrench, then by the time you have to use a real socket wrench, you understand the concepts of it. Same thing. If you understand how to interact with people that are acquaintances versus how to interact with people who are very dear friends, you have those tools so that when you get bigger, you can grow into them.
So how does one sign up to be raised by you?
Well, I think that's actually, if I were to grow into the coaching space, that's what I would do. It would be something that I take on as a mom project more than as a human project, because it's super easy to stay humble as a mom because your kids, they challenge you in ways you're never going to expect. And if you come to the coaching with the idea of more of a maternal or a paternal space, I think that might actually work for me.
Interesting. One thing you said that reminded me of one of my teachers, Marshall Rosenberg. He said he would say, let's take and labels and children and all these words. We have two groups of people, or two people, and they both borrowed something but didn't return it. And he separated people into two groups, put them in two rooms, and then they wrote down their conversation with this person who borrowed something from me but didn't return it. And in one conversation, this person was neighbor with the label on them, and the other conversation, this person was child. And then they got back to the room, they read these together, and then they voted on which one seemed more friendly and loving and compassionate. And you can imagine the one where it was child, the conversation was always decided to be not so loving, not so compassionate compared to talking to the neighbor about something. So those labels are powerful. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And also attachment. That's the other thing. And that's part of just growing into humanity. But moving through a space and having negative feelings and unpacking them, like really sitting down and thinking about it, is a moment of clarity and learning. And that's exactly what that is if you have this concept where when you talk to your kids, you have to have this mindset, and there's a lot of like finger pointing and chastising, but you talk to another human who is, you expect to be on the same level with you, and it's more kind and understanding and compassionate and like, hey, stuff happens, whatever. Like maybe we should take those ideas where you don't get angry and you don't have those, expected negative or what we would label as negative feelings. When those aren't popping up, maybe we should move more in that space than this other space. And it's okay. It's okay to take the kindness approach that you find elsewhere and apply it to places where people don't normally apply it. That's fine. And I think not enough people understand the permission of moving through something in a kind way, even if it's counter to the things that society is telling you to do. And that's definitely a thing with raising kids.
Okay, that brings up another question for me, and that is, I hear people speaking with the child voice, So we're going to go here, and we're going to do this, And the thing that seems to, the reason I don't like that is because it seems to shield a little bit my emotional state or what's really going on for me from the kid, and so my question is, or from the tiny human. So my question is, To what degree are you able to be vulnerable with and emotionally like real with a 4-year-old? And can you have a relationship on that level? Like how do you manage that in terms of, authority and you're being real, and like what do you need to protect and what do you need to actually show? This is the real world and this is how I'm suffering, right? How does it work for you?
I would say, rather honestly, that my little one is the only person that I will let myself be completely vulnerable around.
Wow.
And it's because it's because I want him to understand the world. And so when I left his father, um, that that's a whole other thing. But that was a particularly horrible experience for a number of reasons. It was bad, and I left on a very abrupt circumstance. And my little one is the one I cried around, and he was at the time 1.5, almost. Yeah, he was about 1.5 when I left the physical dwelling I shared with his father, and I cried around him, and I was vulnerable around him, and I hurt around him, um, and not in a way that I wanted to guilt trip him or put any pressure of mommy's the best. Mommy wins in this situation. You need to love mommy more because look at how much I'm crying. It wasn't from that space. And when I explained it to him, because he was a year and a half old, he didn't understand. But I still gave him the mommy's sad. Mommy hurts. Mommy has pain inside. Because at 1.5, you understand that. Like, oh, there's pain. I get it. You cry when you have pain. And I didn't go into it. I didn't, your father hurt me in a way that is going to scar me for the entire rest of my life and I might never recover. I wasn't putting those kind of heavy things on him, but I was like, mommy hurts. Mommy has pain. I am crying because I have pain, because I'm human and that's how you respond to pain sometimes. And he snuggled me through it and he just held me, for 30 seconds because he had a toddler's attention span. But when I feel feelings, I feel them around him because I want him to know that feelings are normal and they are debilitating sometimes. And if he doesn't see that from the people that he knows the best, that he's the closest to, then when he grows up and he's around other humans, how is he supposed to connect to a friend that he's trying to develop a friendship with and he's having some sort of emotional experience, but he doesn't know how to speak to it or behave around other people? He can't connect as well with his friends if his mother can't cry around him, is kind of how I equate it.
Wow.
And I mean, I'm going to even go so far as to point out that I don't cry around people. I don't have emotions around grown humans most of the time. I step into a place of power and compassion and love, and that's where I function for people. I don't like being vulnerable around other people. It makes me wildly uncomfortable. But with my tiny human, I will hold him and I will cry into his hair and I will sob and let him hold me because he needs to understand. He hasn't figured out that the world is a terrible place yet, and he needs to understand in steps how you respond when the world does kind of bring you down.
Wow. Thank you. Again, so many different conversations to be had here. It's just astounding. I knew it would be like that, or I thought it would be like this. I thought I'm gonna pull Lily in here, and we're just gonna go all over the place, and it's gonna be fun.
And here we are.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first bit ended up being a workshop, and I'm definitely going to pass that on to anyone who's having situations around that, like unwanted energy, attention. How do we deal with it? And the second part is becoming a deep clinic on alternative ideas around child raising.
Mm.
And I find it strange that it's normal to hit kids, it's normal to scream at kids, it's normal to, like we have debates about this, like should we do this or not type thing, but what you're saying and the ways of, well, treat them like adults, that seems, oh my god, you couldn't do that, we have to.
Yeah, well, we're taught, I mean, and most of us grew up in the same environment. We are taught that home is an authoritarian palace.
Yeah.
And we are the lowest of the low in our home growing up.
Right.
That's just how we're taught. And So again, like I was saying, I see things I want to see in the world, and I trace them back and figure out how to develop a better version of it at home with my little. And one of the things that I find ghastly is the human comfort level with authoritarian structure. Um, Most people who have worked their way into any form of power are not people who should be in that space. And it's our responsibility as other humans in the world to challenge that. I'm not going to get into politics. That's not what this is about. What I saw is this everywhere. You get hierarchical structures everywhere. Government is a hierarchical structure. Religion is probably the worst hierarchical structure. Home is that. School is that. Everywhere you go, there is a hierarchy. Work, for the most part, work is one of those things. Everywhere, there is a hierarchy. I don't like that. I find issues with that, moral and the ethical issues with that for a lot of reasons. And so, seeing that this is a structure I don't like and I don't agree with, I am not going to reinforce that in my home. I am not the authority in my space. I have the most experience. I have the most wisdom. And because of that, I am going to guide you through these experiences that you experience, tiny human, through your process. Yes, I know I said no to having a popsicle. And yes, you are going to have a meltdown. And rather than freak out at you because it's 8:30 in the morning and I was supposed to be at work a half an hour ago, but you're having a meltdown because I said no to a popsicle, rather than just saying, get your shit together and get out so we can go do the thing, I'm going to sit there with you and I'm going to say, you know what? You're right. This is really not a comfortable space for you to be in. I'm sorry I had to say no, but you need to understand that the way the world works is that mommy has to go to work. I have to do these things. And because of that, here's my thought process. And this is why I said no to you having a popsicle. Because I want him to understand at any point in the process, he can challenge me. He is welcome to challenge me. Mommy, I want a popsicle. No. Why? Because I said so is never the right reason in my house. Mommy, I want a popsicle. No. Why? Because we needed to leave for work a half an hour ago and I can't deal with the emotional response of trying to get you a popsicle right now and get myself out the door. I just need you to trust me today. I will get you a popsicle tonight. Get the hell out of my house. I'm going to take those extra, and that's not easy. And I understand how people smack their kids and say, because I said so, or this is just how it is, deal with it. It's not easy to take that extra step or those extra 12 steps to try to explain everything to someone who is a tiny, wildly intelligent, very emotional version of myself. But at the same time, it's worth it to me, because if I had those experiences, and I did have a lot of them growing up, I had people explain stuff to me. I very rarely got the because I said so answer. And those were always my growing spaces. That's where I came into being a better person, is because it wasn't just this, you don't need to know, I'll figure it out. I'm in charge, do the thing. It was, I can't right now. We'll talk about it later. And then we talk about it later. And it's, mommy was having a really shitty day at work. All of this stuff went sideways. I only have so much emotional capacity to deal with things. At the moment you asked me for this thing, I couldn't do it because I didn't have the space inside of me to do it. I'm like, oh, that's real deep. Okay, thanks, Mom. All right. And so I want to be that person for my kid. I want to make sure that he knows at any point he can challenge me, because if he's comfortable challenging me and I'm the most quote unquote authoritarian person in his life, then when he goes to school and some teacher says something like, well, the slaves, they weren't slaves, they were volunteers. They came over and they did work. It was like this program. He'll stand up and be like, that's fucking bullshit. You're full of shit. No, they were slaves. We stole them. We brought them over. Because these are the things I see being taught in school. It makes me insane. But I want him to know that if it's at school, if it's at work, if it's in a loving personal relationship, he can speak to the things that make him uncomfortable and bring them up so that they can be addressed in time, so that he has more time and more space to grow into being a better person.
I love your smile. I love your laugh. I love all your wisdom too, but I just have to laugh too. So it's just like 7 years ago, and then you stop, and I'm like, mic drop. Okay, now what? I just want to let you talk. I don't even need to say anything. I just go, just say whatever, and I'll run the camera here and you tell me when you're done. So
Perfect.
Yeah, as far as performing, and I just want to go into that a little bit. Like, have you always been a performer, or how did you get into performing and then modeling and then stripping or burlesque, or
I started, I think the first time I did theater, I was in middle school.
Mhm.
No, elementary school.
Mhm.
And I've always, when I take the personality tests and it's like, here, figure out who you are. I'm like, oh, here's some loosely science-based witchcraft for you to figure out yourself.
Okay.
Every time I take those, I'm always squarely, evenly distributed.
Mm.
I am as much of an introvert as I am an extrovert. I am just as content to sit in my room with a book and a cup of tea for 12 hours and not move as I am to go out and be the center of attention for people. But I've always been a very outgoing person. I'm always very comfortable in a space where I'm talking to people. And I see it. It's funny, just to connect the two, I see it in my son as well. He runs into random people and he'll be like, hi, I'm Gavin. I live over there. That's my mom. I have a dinosaur. We have a cat. And he just like runs into people and is like, here's my life story. And then he'll be like, I really appreciate talking to you. Thanks so much. Okay, bye. Have a good day. And I'm like, this is what my mom used to tell me. I was like, when I was little. So I've always been open to other people. And I started doing theater in elementary school, school plays, school choir, which there's a reason I only pursued that through elementary school. Um, but I've always enjoyed being able to tell stories. And that's what performance is to me. And my understanding of how humans connect to each other is through the medium of storytelling. Um, that's why art happened, is because we needed to tell stories, and we needed to tell stories beyond the moment that we were telling the story. And so we learned to paint, and we learned to sculpt, and we learned to leave traces of ourselves and our stories along the way. And so to me, telling a story is one of the most sacred human experiences that you can have. And so I write, and I would tell verbal stories, and I act, and I tell someone else's story, but I get to be a part of someone else's story. And so there's a connection there. Even if I never get to meet Shakespeare, which is highly likely, I still get to connect to that person because I get to help tell his story. So I've always enjoyed that in every possible incarnation. When I grew into myself and kind of came out, and this is going back to the Losing Our Religion podcast, when I came out of the space where I had all of the ties of religious expectations, I realized that I was an incredibly sexual person. And more than that, I'm a very sensual person. I like colors, and I like textures, and I like feeling and expressing these things with people. And as I really accepted that about myself and grew into it, I realized that mixing the two concepts of this sensual experience with storytelling brought me into finding burlesque and just loving burlesque and being able to be a part of it. And I love it because it doesn't matter what story I want to tell. Burlesque gives me a space to tell it, and modeling gives me a space to tell it. So, I can have a moment where I need deep inside of me, something about me just needs to be a physical incarnation of the airbrushed wizard on the side of a van from the 1970s. Like, I don't know why, but I need to do that. I need to be that. And I'm going to throw candy at people, and I'm going to make them uncomfortable. And I'm going to be in this weird wizard drag until I strip out of it and you see that I'm a lady in fringe, and I'm going to get naked and show you my tits. I don't know why that's a thing that I needed to do, but it was. And burlesque gave me the space to be able to do that. And, sometimes I need to put on fetish boots and sit in the flamingo and eat Cheez-Its and stare awkwardly at a camera. I need it. I don't know why I need it. I don't even understand the story I'm telling, but God damn it, I needed to tell that story. And I did. And modeling gave me the space to be able to do that. So it's the experience of my storytelling has developed as I have developed into myself more as a person. And it's gone from, awkwardly writing really emotive poetry and short stories when I was 14, 16, 17 to sitting in an inflatable flamingo in my living room wearing thigh-high fetish boots and a top hat eating Cheez-Its staring at my friends.
Sounds like quite an evolution.
Right.
If you'd started with the flamingo, you probably would be locked away. So anyway.
Right. Yeah. And I'm gonna have to have a conversation with myself where it gets too much farther past the flamingo, and I'm gonna be like, whoa, let's take it back a step or two.
Well, I'm sure that's a fetish somewhere. So
I'm sure. I just have to find it, and then I can sell more of the pictures.
Oh my goodness. Okay, this has been amazing. And I think this is kind of where we said this might be a good time to slow down a bit. So, because of other commitments. But thank you for taking so much time with me and diving in so deeply. You say you're not vulnerable, but thank you for being vulnerable. From my perspective, I learned so much about you, and intellectually vulnerable and psychologically, and letting us dive into what it's like to be with you, which was my first question.
Yeah, I think that the best way to explain that is just to experience it. Come over to my house, come to a show, let's be in the same space with me, and I think you'll understand a little bit better what it's like to be around me than I could ever possibly explain to you myself.
I can hardly wait. I can only imagine the tea parties. So. All right. For people who want more of you in any variation, do you want to tell us how to find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm always open to communicating with people until they make it clear that we are not able to communicate. So, you can email me at lilyvontrapp.com. No, lilyvontrapp@gmail.com. My website is lilyvontrapp.org. I'm on Twitter, Lily_VonTrapp, and then Facebook and Instagram, Lily VonTrapp. It's 2 L's, 2 P's, 2 L's total, not 3, which people get confused when I say it's 2 L's. Because I tend to be a literalist asshole sometimes. But yeah, I mean, if you can find me, you can reach out to me, and I'm always responsive until it's evident that our communication should no longer continue.
Well, I hope you don't draw that conclusion from our time together.
Not today, absolutely not.
Okay. And any final thoughts you want to share?
Just be excellent to each other.
It calls back. Yeah, Bill and Ted, exactly. Be excellent. Yes. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone who watched and participated. I know I probably missed your questions because I was just so captivated. So anyway, but you know how to find her if you have questions for her.
Yes.
So go to her.
If you don't get them answered, pass them on to me. I will address them.
All right. Yeah. Go to her, ask the questions. And that's amazing that you're so accessible and open. And I'm sure one day it will not be possible for you to be that accessible. So get her now.
Right.
Have that opportunity.
Space is limited. Bye now.
Exactly. All right. Thank you so much. You take care, and looking forward to the next interaction or conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.